A cozy fire is burning bright, the snow is glistening on the ground, the Christmas trees are filling our homes with joy and laughter. Must be the season of The Witcher. Let's get started. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. Hello, my friends. Welcome to Thumb Together. My name is Andrew Fantasia, and today we are going to be talking about The Witcher together. As usual, if you enjoy this video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and give some love to that subscribe button as well. And don't forget, if you're a fantasy fan, which you probably are because you're watching a review about this show, why don't you check out my book, Side Scroller. Yep, I wrote this myself. This is a fantasy adventure set in a world that runs on the logic of video games. It is twice as fun as it sounds, maybe even 3 times as fun. But that's where I draw the line. You can pick up Side Scroller on Amazon in either paperback or ebook format. Don't buy Stephen King books. Don't buy Tolkien books. They have enough money. Support an up-and-coming author. Create new content by supporting an up-and-coming author. And pick up Side Scroller today. I promise you won't be disappointed. But will you be disappointed by The Witcher? There are a lot of schools of thought on that. The Witcher is an adaptation of a series of fantasy books written in Poland by a very talented author whose name I unfortunately can't pronounce very well. But these books have been going on for many years. They were popular enough that they spawned a very well-received video game series that I personally wasn't crazy about. So it was only natural that eventually we get some kind of filmic adaptation too. A movie probably wouldn't have worked well. I don't know. I want to read the books, but I haven't yet. But I think it might have been the smarter choice to go the route of a streaming TV show. Lo and behold, here we are. Netflix has released the long-awaited Witcher. Is it any good? I don't know. Unlike the good folks who do reviews at Entertainment Weekly, I have seen every episode of The Witcher. So when I say I don't know, I'm just being facetious. I'm not saying I actually don't know. The thing is, I am not 100% sure if I liked The Witcher or not. I think it had a lot of cool points. I think it had a lot of not cool points. It sort of lived in this weird gray zone of middle ground and never fluctuated too far in either direction to make any kind of lasting impact on me. Geralt of Rivia is our main character. He is a witcher, which means he witches every now and then. It also means he hunts monsters and he's got a sword and he fights people and he has no personality. And that's one of the rubs that really gets under my skin is I am not a fan of these kind of characters, folks. I am a huge fan of Westerns and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is one of the greatest movies ever made. But I don't like those Clint Eastwood characters. I don't like those man with no name characters who are just there to be cool and manly and badass because that's not interesting. It is as far away from interesting as you could possibly get. And Geralt of Rivia is one of those characters. That came across very heavily in the video games, which is one of the reasons I'm not a fan of those games, but it also comes across very heavily in this show. Geralt of Rivia is just one of those dudes who's like, I'm good at everything. I always have the right thing to say, and I win all the arguments and fights I get in, and all the women want me. Except that last part with the laugh, I made that up. Geralt never laughs because laughing isn't badass enough, apparently. So if those kinds of characters turn you off as much as they turn me off, then I would say just prepare your body for that. Because every time Geralt of Rivia is on screen, it's that very adolescent idea of manliness where it's just him swinging his sword around thinking he's the coolest shit on the street. And I think the only saving grace that keeps his character from being an absolute pile of garbage is Henry Cavill, because Henry Cavill is a likable dude. Like every time I see Henry Cavill, whatever he's in, I'm just like, I love this guy. He just seems like a cool guy. When he's playing this role, because I know what kind of guy he is in real life, at least I have that in the back of my head. At least I think, okay, this is not a guy who believes the bullshit that this character is. This is not a guy who in real life thinks this guy's actually cool. This is just an actor who likes fun fantasy and is just going along with the ride. He's, in other words, in on the joke. And that, to me, saves that part of the story from being a train wreck. It saves me from, hating it every time Geralt of Rivia is on screen. The show also plays with time a lot, where you're watching 3 different characters who are existing in 3 very different time periods, but it never makes that any kind of big reveal. There's not, some kind of moment where they pull back the curtain and say, and you've been watching 3 time periods this whole time, ta-da. They do it more subtle than that, and I'm cool with that. I like that. But you just have to sort of understand that, otherwise you might hate the show for the wrong reasons. You might say, oh, this was stupid, that didn't make sense. It wasn't stupid. It made sense. It was just not called attention to. There's a moment where somebody just has a very low-key piece of dialogue that makes you think, oh, I understand what's going on now. These have been 3 different time periods we've been watching. I like that it was subtle like that. I have seen shows that I love much more than Witcher that have done that to a bigger extreme and made it a moment, and I'm not going to say what shows there are because that would spoil that part of the show. But I do think that this method of getting that point across is still effective. It's just not as bombastic. Unfortunately, I gotta say the plot really didn't grab me, because as far as I can tell, the plot is just there's this kingdom called Nilfgaard and it wants to invade because of reasons. So it's invading, and it's just everybody sort of dealing with that invasion. And in the first chunk of episodes, we see the backstories of most of the people involved in the invasion, and then the rest of it is just them dealing with it. And that, to me, was kind of weak. It didn't really make me care to keep tuning in, especially because it was broken up into a lot of non-sequitur-esque segments that did have reasons for existing, but they felt very episodic and less serialized, and I don't think it fit the Netflix format in that way. If you binge this show, which you probably will because it's on Netflix, you might find yourself scratching your head a few times because an episode will happen and it'll have a beginning, a middle, and end, and then the next episode will start and everybody looks the same, but you'll gradually learn that years have passed since the events of the last episode, and you're just like, well, why did they do it that way? It's an odd way to tell a story on Netflix. It's not an odd way to tell a story. There's nothing wrong with the way The Witcher tells its story. I think it's kind of cool that, you keep jumping around in time. It's just an odd way to tell it on Netflix, because when you're binging, it kind of throws you for a loop, and you're like, well, why did we need to see that when we could have just picked up here? Again, I really want to read these books, and I have a feeling that the majority of them are similar to like the old Conan the Barbarian books, where it's just a series of one-off short stories about Geralt of Rivia running around killing monsters. That is what the show feels like, a series of these things where it's just Geralt doing stuff, and all threaded throughout is this invasion story that takes place in a different time period than Geralt doing stuff, and you're supposed to just sort of accept that roller coaster of important, not important, important, not important, and then get to the end, and you're not really sure what mattered and what didn't. I will say that the world that this is set in is absolutely wonderful. I love me some real thick, juicy, encyclopedic world building, and the world of Witcher really has that. This reminded me of when we first sat down and watched the very first season of Game of Thrones. Do you remember that? Do you remember the first season of Game of Thrones when people would say names like Dorne and Essos and the North, and we would be like, ooh, what are all these different places and all these different people they're talking about? What's Craster's Keep? What is that? People keep saying that. Who are the Dornish people? And we realized through dialogue that there is so much of this world, so many hidden pockets to uncover. And it was beautiful, and it was colorful, and everybody from every part of the world wore a different color so you could easily identify them, until like the last couple seasons of the show when everybody just wore black because I guess they wanted it to look boring. That's what this reminded me of. Everybody was dressed sort of according to where they came from or what they did, and everybody would mention things like the elves' rebellion, or this king, or that battle, or that part of the world, or the certain groups who did certain magic at certain places. There's so much just flippant mention of this greater world, and I like stuff like that. So I am excited to learn more about whatever this world is called, just because of the way they set it up. At the end of the day, though, this was just not a show that I was excited to keep watching. It was only 8 episodes, but the whole time, I'm watching an episode and then I stop. I don't really want to carry on. And the only reason I got through it was because I wanted to do this review, so I wanted to hurry up and finish the 8. It took me about a week, and I finally got to the end, but it wasn't a matter of like, oh, it's over already? I want more. It was just like, okay, 2 more episodes and then I can finally talk about it. It didn't grab me and sink its teeth in me and make me hungry for more. Not in the way shows like Dark or Stranger Things have done. Which is a shame, because I think there is a really good show in here somewhere. Not great, but really good. I think you have a beautiful world to play in. I think you have opportunities for so many amazing characters and stories to tell. Maybe with more interesting characters like the Princess Ciri or the Mage Yennefer, who has the best character arc in this whole show as far as I'm concerned. There's a lot of room to do something fantastic. They just didn't do it in this season. Now, this took a long time to make. I'm sure season 2 isn't anywhere close to being on its way. And frankly, I can wait. I honestly can wait. I'm not itching for more Witcher. And it's kind of a shame because I really wanted to. I love fantasy. It's too bad that this didn't hit me the way it should have. But hey, there's always Amazon's Middle-earth show, which has taken 25 years to make. Maybe by the time I retire, the first episode will be out. Anyway, that has been The Witcher. I have been Andrew Fantasia. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'll see you all here next time. And until then, adios.